The city of Eldridge had always had its share of shadows, but this time the darkness felt different. Over the past 3 months, 4 women had gone missing. All were taken at night, all lived alone, and all were found a week later, each in a remote, wooded area with the same horrifying signature: bound wrists, mouths gagged with duct tape, and a deep cut across the throat. Each victim had been tortured before death. The media dubbed the killer the Shadow Man. Panic swept across Eldridge. Curfews were imposed, and women no longer walked alone after sundown. The police were desperate, the leads thin. Detective Laura Briggs had been with the force for 12 years, but this case clawed at her like no other. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Each victim reminded her of her younger sister, who had once vanished for a terrifying 48 hours before being found alive but broken. Laura knew monsters existed, and this one wasn't done yet. What the public didn't know was that the killer always left behind a small token, hidden on the body, an old matchbook from a long-shuttered diner called Shelley's Grill, once located on the outskirts of town. The matchbook wasn't listed in any official reports. It was their only real clue. Laura obsessed over it. She drove out to the old diner one night, the shell of the building still standing, half swallowed by vines and rot. Inside, she found nothing but broken chairs, shattered glass, and a long-forgotten scent of grease and ash. But in the back storage room, someone had been there recently. Fresh cigarette butts, footprints in the dust. Someone had made this place their shrine. Back at the precinct, Laura pushed the forensic techs to re-examine the matchbooks. A breakthrough came from an unlikely source. A single fingerprint, partial but viable, had been lifted from the underside of the 3rd victim's matchbook. It matched a man named Curtis Vance, a drifter with a sealed juvenile record and a string of suspicious complaints that had never led to charges. He had disappeared off the radar 5 years ago. Laura's gut told her he never really left Eldridge. A task force was put together. Undercover units staked out women's shelters, night bus stops, and late-night diners. Curtis, it turned out, had been using different aliases and working odd jobs in the city. One patrol cop spotted him on a security camera 2 days later, walking behind a young woman just a block from where the last victim had vanished. The footage was grainy, but unmistakable. They had him. Laura barely slept the night they moved in. She waited outside a cheap motel after an informant tipped them off. Curtis had taken a girl into room 207. No sound came through the walls. The team waited for backup, but something snapped inside Laura. She remembered the look on the last victim's mother's face, the hollow ache in her eyes. She wasn't going to let another girl die. Gun drawn, Laura kicked the door in. The room was dim, the curtains drawn tight. The girl was tied to the bed, blood on her lips, but still alive, wide-eyed and trembling. Curtis stood over her with a knife, turning in shock as the door burst open. He didn't drop the blade. His eyes were flat, almost dead, like he'd already accepted what was going to happen. He stepped toward the girl, raising the knife. "Stop!" Laura shouted. He didn't. A single shot rang out, then 2 more. Curtis dropped like a marionette with its strings cut, the knife clattering beside him. Blood pooled around his chest, soaking into the cheap motel carpet. The girl sobbed, but managed to scream Laura's name. The paramedics arrived minutes later. The girl survived. She would live, carry scars for the rest of her life, but she would live. Curtis Vance's body was taken to the morgue. The media reported the story the next day. Shadow Man gunned down in rescue operation. The city exhaled for the first time in months. Laura sat alone that night in her kitchen, lights off, a glass of whiskey in her hand. She had stopped the monster, but in doing so, something inside her felt irreversibly altered. There would always be another Shadow, another Curtis. But for tonight, one less woman was dead, and that had to be enough.